Well, once again, welcome back. As I indicated in the last video, I finished the back and the sleeves. Now this fabric we're going to use for the yoke. If I got this right, the yoke, we cut that. I mean, that. I want to see how much room I've got right there. Okay, so I can do this right here. Oh boy, yeah, just barely hit the yoke right there. So I'm going to cut this out here. The yoke is the top of the back and the shoulders of a shirt. Most shirts is the same color as the back and the front. I don't believe in that. I like to have a little variety of what each part of the shirt is. So here we are. Get that done. That. This is the back of the neck here. Cut that out. Now the entire yoke will get serged since this is the final cut. So get rid of the leftover fabric. Okay, let's go to the serger. Oh. All right, you got the other microphone like that. Okay. I'm going to take this a little bit slow. This is fairly heavy upholstery fabric, and you don't normally serge upholstery because, unlike clothing, the inside of a piece of upholstery is not going to be exposed at all, unlike clothing. So it can just be left without the overlock for the edges. With clothing, however, you're wearing it, taking it on and off, and washing it and everything else. It does get a lot of exposure, and edges can get unraveled in clothing. So, and on top of that, many types of upholstery fabric are woven in such a way that they will unravel very easily if worn as clothing. I have ruined many of my own pieces of clothing that I had made out of really beautiful upholstery or furniture fabric because it unfrayed very, very easily. You have to be really careful in serging some upholstery fabrics. Some, on the other hand, are very tightly woven and will not unfray even if you do not serge them. I might as well serge everything. This is a precaution. So we're done with the yoke. Okay, here is the yoke of the shirt. Now, you have a choice of using that side or it's this side. I kind of like this a little bit better. So that's the yoke. Next, we're going to do the collar. The collar, the pattern for the collar is right here. This is the pattern for the collar. Put the other pattern pieces aside. This is what the shape of the collar looks like. So let's find something that's suitable for that. Well, let's try this. The collar is usually two thicknesses of fabric. And it's turned inside and out. It's sewn together, then turned inside out. To conserve fabric, we're going to get this over to here. We're going to cut this out. Make sure you can see that if you can. Okay. Now with the collar, this and this, the whole thing, actually all sides are going to be inside the collar. So we don't have to serge this. I'm just going to leave it. Let's get rid of that. And let's see that. This is all waste here. Take the remainder of this fabric, put it away. Now, what we're going to do in sewing the collar is make sure the right side has to be together. Now, which side? Oh, it's very hard to think. That's the right side. Yeah, this is the right side, like, let's see now. So hard to tell. Okay, I'm going to... Okay, I'm going to have to make an assumption that that is it. So what we're going to do now, we're going to sew around here, there, and like that. We leave this open. this gets turned inside out. So, you go to the machine. All right, now. Okay, now. Here's the collar. It's sewn around the three sides. We're going to cut the corners off. They tend to bunch up when we turn it inside and out. Something like that. Now we proceed to turn this inside out. Something like this. So push the corners out as much as we can. Like something like that. And we're going to do with this, we're going to do a top stitch all the way around as much as we can, although that's an awful lot here. What I'm going to do is turn it back to what it was. Turn it back outside in. Now, I'm going to trim this some more. Something like this. Maybe that will be a little bit easier. All right. We have a little bit less to tuck in now. A little bit less here. Now let's see if that makes it a little bit easier to turn this whole thing inside out. A sharper point at each of the points of the collar. Okay, that's a lot better. Now what we're going to do, we're going to do the top stitch around the three. Actually, this top stitch can go around all four sides. So let's start right here. All right, start at this corner. We're going to make sure it's pulled all the way out. You notice that the foot comes up. That's by pushing the pedal back just ever slightly. You have to be careful. If I push it back too far, it'll indicate end of stitch and we'll do the back and forth and cut the thread. I don't want to do that. All I want to do now, what I did was to turn the corner. So now we're going up the top of the collar right now, trying to push that open as much as possible. For those of you who follow the normal patterns, this is where you spend a lot of time pressing it with an iron. I try to do this to save time and to save myself from getting burned by the iron. I don't do that. I just entrust my ability to pull it open. So that is sufficient. Now the last stitch run is right there. Down. And that's it. Now we got the edge of the collar top stitch. What we're going to do now is just do a single stitch across here so that it will stay closed when I get ready to install the collar into the shoulder, the front, the yoke, the front and the shoulders on the front and the yoke of the shirt, which is the next steps. Okay, now we got this cut now. Now we're going to trim this a little bit at the bottom. Like that. Now the collar is done. Set that aside for now. It's the next step. We got the collar done. We got the yoke done. Now we're going to cut out the front of the shirt, the two panels to the front. Then we attach those to the collar, to the yoke. Then we attach the yoke to the collar. Then the lining. We cut and stitch the lining, and we complete the front and the collar for the shirt and attach the snap. So I'm going to get the front panels right now. I know you won't be to see these in their entirety because they're so big, but let's get them, okay. All right, here's the front. Here are the pockets. Remember, the pockets are right here. We're going to line, can we see that? Yeah, we're going to line the pockets up like that. Make sure let's see, that's going to be the pockets are here. Open this up carefully. That's the pockets. This is the center front. So we are going to have a little mismatch here, but there's nothing we can do about that. If we pull it too much, then the pockets are where the eye are going to focus, right here. This is fairly close here. These are out of alignment, and that's far enough from your focus. I don't think I really need to care. Let's get this back to be lined up like that. Okay. Now, two sides are lined up. Now we take the template, the pattern template for the front. It's going to look, it's going to be something like that. This, you have to make sure that this is, yes, this is going to fall onto the seam for both sides of the front. If that's okay. That looks okay. It's going to be close, but I think that's okay. So we're going to now we're going to cut the pattern on the both sides of the front. Okay, we got the collar cut on both. Now this is the shoulder I'm about to cut right now. Have to be very careful. We got a lot of seams we have to cut through. I'm going to roll it several times, make sure that is cut, and come all the way down here. Now we're going, this is the shoulder off to the end like that. And now we get the collar. Let's move this towards the center. We got the collar here, got the shoulder here. I keep forgetting that the image that you get on the screen is not necessarily the whole thing. I'm going to keep this, because I might need that for another garment. So now, this, let's just double check. Pockets are even, so this may not be even, you know, but that's far enough away from the focus that we're going to now do the sleeve. Now this is tricky. We're going diagonally around a seam. Now we're cutting like this. We've got several seams we're cutting through here. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a pair of scissors right here. We got a lot that we're cutting through there. All right, we got that done. Now, all we have to do now, this is the side of the shirt. So we're going to cut again right here. We're going to use the scissors, which a rotary color will not cut through this whole mess here. That aside. And here's the bottom. All right, now, let's say that. So now we've just cut the front. Now let's open it up. So here's, I know it's going to be hard to see this. So that's the front of the shirt. Now it's crazy. Okay, so this is the top of the front. Here are the pockets going down the front. You see the colors. It looks like the matching came up pretty well. Let's take a look at that image. Let's see. That is going to be so hard. Yeah, you can get a general idea. Let's kind of move it up slowly so you can see it. Okay, now, the next step is to run this through the serger. Now, some places can be really difficult. Like right here, we get the towel fabric along with the upholstery fabric. That may be tricky. Another tricky spot may be there and there. So we have to be really careful with the serger. You know what? I think I'm going to skip this with the serger. And that's going to be the shoulder. That may not be so bad, but let's see how far we get. So we're going to head over to the serger. And we're going to take this real slow. Do the easy part first. The front center is fairly easy, so let's go ahead and do that. Now we're going around the collar now. Now here we're going to the first thick part, taking it real slow and look like we made it on that one. Now we're going to go down the shoulder. We've got yet another fold of upholstery fabric where my thumb is. So we're going to take it really slow, and anything that sounds out of kilter will stop and skip it. Look like we did it. We made it across that one right there. Okay, so we made it across the shoulder. Now the sleeve, the bottom of the sleeve right here is going to get a little tricky, but let's go ahead and do as much as we can. I'm going to just, what I'm going to do, I'm going to veer off right there. Avoid the real bad spot there. And then we're going to come down here. The side looks okay. At least most of the side. This is fairly light fabric. Keep on going down until we reach here, and I'm going to veer off like that. Okay, we made it. Now, the bottom. Okay. Okay, we're going to do as much as we can here. Really slow. Okay, we got success on the first side of the shirt. All right. Cut off the extras. That. All right. All right. First side is done. Do the next. Okay, we can do this. There we go. Okay, here's the bottom. Now, this is the area we skipped on the first half. So we're going to come in here. We're not going to bother to try to come in there. We're going to skip all this. Go right in, starting above that tough spot, making a fairly smooth, easy run up the side of the shirt to this point here. Now, this is the other bad spot here. We're going to skip it, and we're going to enter it right here. Something like this. Now, if that bad spot frays, it's only going to fray a small amount for 2 inches, because then it's going to try to go right into a place I have already run the serger. Now, that complete armhole looked like it ran okay. Okay, now we got another challenging spot here. Let's take, this is in the shoulder now. On the other side, that went okay. If I went really, really slowly like this, until we're out the other side like that. We just completed the shoulder successfully. We got another spot here on the collar. So let's go ahead. Do this one really slowly. Do that one okay. Now we're in the thinner fabric, which is okay. Like that. Cut that. All right. Now we're going down the front, which is very easy. And now we're back to where we started. So now both sides of the shirt front are now done. Now, just to remind you, we're going to hold off doing cutting the back until the front assembly that is done. That is putting the front together, putting the collar on the front, and putting the interfacing on the front, and installing the snap fasteners is done. Now, that side of the front is done. Here, once again, here is the front. The front's done. It is serged. Now, this is the top here. I know you're seeing it upside down, but let's do this. So this is the top of the front here. Something like that. Now, I am now going to grab the yoke. The next thing we do is that we attach the yoke to the shoulders. The yoke gets attached to the shoulders of the front like that. So good side here gets attached to good side here. We start from the neck and stitch out. If there's any differences, we take care of them on the shoulder, not the neck. So this is all serge, that is serge. So we're set to sew, so we head over to the sewing machine. See, this is the neck, that's the neck, this is the shoulder, this is the front of the shirt with the good side facing up, this is the yoke with the good side facing down. We try to line them up as best we can. Put that under the machine with a standard 1/2-inch seam allowance, something like this. Just a simple stitch, the length of the shoulder. So we're at the shoulder, one side like that. Okay, that's one shoulder. Now, we do the other side, which means we take this, we grab the other side of the front of the shirt, and just like what we just did, we start again, good side of the shoulder. We start at the neck like this. Start right there, start the stitch. These are lined up. Make a simple seam along the shoulder on the other side like this. Now we pull these open. We're going to do the top stitch, and the yoke is a single piece of fabric. This is not. So we're going to fold towards the yoke. The seam will be folded towards the yoke, which is to my right or your left. So let's go ahead and do this top stitch on each of the shoulders. Shoulder number 1. This is shoulder number 2. All right, now, oops, it looks like I dropped the mouse on the floor, computer mouse. I get that back up. Let's go back to the cutting table. Oops. And here we are. This is the, let's see now. Oh, let's see. Okay, so that. Here is the front of the shirt stitched to the yoke. So I'm going to go ahead, put this around my neck, make sure this is long enough. So I'm going to get the camera so you can see me. Actually, you don't have to do that. I forgot something. Let's come over here to all right, now go ahead and put this on. You got plenty of room. Okay. If that's okay. We get out of there. Now, all right, next, we do that. Now, I said, here is the next thing we have to do. We have to cut what's called the interfacing. The interfacing gets stitched, first gets stitched around the collar and down the front. Okay, so there'd be another piece set of fabric laying first, initially outside, on the good side against good side, stitched all around, including the collar. Then the whole thing turned inside out. That's called couture sewing. So now, we're going to set this aside. It's time now to cut the interfacing. The interfacing does not have to be anything fancy. It is not normally seen. So let's see what we can find. I'm going to try to find a fabric that I would not normally use for my regular sewing because it's not going to be seen. Okay, let's just use this generic fabric. Let's spread out. Let's spread out something like this. There are 3 pieces to it, one for each side and one for the backing of the neck. So I'm going to find the pattern pieces for it, which are, let's see, one here and one here. This is the piece for the sides. Okay, it looks like this is just about long enough, which is fine. I'm sure they're lined up. Okay. Okay, now, here, these are the pieces for the sides and the front. Now, I'm going to put the rest of this fabric, push this aside. Now, this is going to be inside the front, turned over and top stitched, so really this does not have to be serged. This will have to be serged. This is fairly short, so we don't care about that. We're just going to serge this curved side on each one. Nothing fancy, just interfacing. You just go ahead and run it full speed. All right. That's it for the interfacing. Now, next we have to do the underside of the collar. So let's set these aside. The underside of the collar is just a single piece. So let's go to the under end of this fabric. Some of these are scraps. Let's cut that off. This is the collar. This what you see here goes under the collar. So this fabric out of the way. Get that folded, that fabric put away. Now, with this, we're going to serge this. This is inside the collar, so we don't have to worry about that. That will be folded in. These are very short, so I'm not going to worry about those. Okay, that's done. All right. The rest of the operation for the front of the shirt is going to be at the sewing machine. We are through with the serger. I think we're through with the cutting. So these were set here. The rest of the pattern, we're going to set it aside since we won't need that until we're ready to do the back. Get these properly tumbled, put away like that. Here's the front of the shirt, and here's the collar. Now what we have to do, let's try to show you here first. All right, let's see. Here's the top right here. Now this is the good side now, okay? We take the collar and we're going to stitch it onto here first with the collar's good side is out anyway. So this collar's on the outside because this is all going to be turned inside out. So what we have to do now, we're going to mark the center of the collar and the center of the shirt. So we come up here, measure this. So I know you probably can't see that. Let's see, this is 15 inches, which would make it 7.5 inches to the center. We're gonna mark this. We're gonna mark the center of the collar like we just marked the center of the collar. Now, let's take this. The neck is 18 inches end to end, like that. That makes the center would be 9 inches. So the center of that 18 inches is going to be 9 inches, which is going to be about here. It may not be perfect, but this, after all, this is a homemade shirt. It's not store-bought. It's right there. That's the center of the shirt. This has to line up with that like that. We're going to start sewing here, go out and go out, keeping this on top all the time. We're going to start in the center where those line up like that. At the sewing machine, let's get this out of the way. Come over here. Line those up, line the ink marks up like that. Keeping the collar on top. We're going to do a very narrow seam allowance. It's not going to be the full 1/2 inch. This would be folded under. There's no top stitch to this yet. There's a 1/4 inch seam allowance starting from the center of the collar and the center of the back of the shirt. I know it's hard for you to see this, but I'm going to have to get another camera about where my hand is aimed downward with its own super bright LED. That's going to probably have to be an assemblage that I will make, because I don't think the TV companies normally have cameras made for sewing machines. So that's going to have to be some sort of homemade Rube Goldberg arrangement that I will probably be ending up putting together myself. Okay, and I'll probably do a video about it when I do it, which I always do. Okay, that's one side of the collar. Okay. Okay, we're going to start from the center again. Okay, you notice I'm keeping the collar on top. So the pull is going to be the same. On the same side, even though now I'm on the opposite side of the shirt. The temptation would have been to put it on the other side of the machine because I am right-handed. I cannot do that. So we're just going to have to be aware that I'm kind of running at a disadvantage by having the whole mess on the other side of the machine. Again, 1/4 inch seam allowance as I go around the collar with the shirt. With the collar, it's going to be something like this. Now the collar is now sewn. Now the next thing I'm going to do take these. I gotta remember, here's where it gets tricky, because I think we start with this. Wait a minute. Yeah, this gets sewn here to here. Okay, we do the side first, and then we do the center. So what I'm going to do now, here, I'm going to start right about here. See, this is the, okay, hard to see it. Let's get it out of here. This is the front of the shirt, good side. This is the interfacing. Doesn't matter which side is good side. Straight edge of the interfacing goes to the front of the shirt. The curved edge is what's going to be inside the shirt. And this is curved for the collar. And this meets the collar piece, or it actually will be covered. It will be covering the collar piece when the whole thing is turned inside out. So let's go ahead, start coming down. Make sure now this now, this is going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, like this. Okay, we're gonna. Now here's where it gets tricky. You got to make sure there's nothing else coming up under the foot except what I want to sew. There's been many cases where something will get inadvertently sewn in when I do this process, especially when we get ready to do the collar itself. Right now, we're only doing the down seam for the front of the shirt, the center front of the shirt. This, by the way, is going to be the button strip. In our case, we use snaps instead of buttons because I hate trying to thread buttons. And snaps, I've never had a snap come off. Buttons come off all the time. I've even seen shirts in the store where the buttons already come off. Okay, so that's the down seam. Now, I'm going to turn this around. Now we're about to follow the collar. Now the neck. The collar has to be turned up like this, okay? Good side facing the collar. You don't want the collar to do that yet. So now we take the top of the interfacing, okay? Go a 1/2 inch or so in, like this. Stitch that. Going around, we're going to, being very careful. It's very easy for something to inadvertently come under that foot. Now, also, we have to make sure that the stitch line we're doing now is outside of this stitch line we did with the collar. Otherwise, it will not turn inside out very well. Okay, so now that's it. We've done the interfacing for this one side. Now it's time to do the other side. So here's the other side. This is the other interfacing. We're going to first do the down seam. This is the other side of the front of the shirt. Something like this. We're doing the down seam on the opposite side of the shirt. Before we get too far, we're going to confirm. Good side facing the interfacing. Nothing coming up under the foot of the machine. Now, if I was using a home sewing machine without the walking needle, I would have had to pin these together about every couple of inches so they will not slip. But the walking needle makes a very big difference in making that unnecessary. Okay, now get that out there. If you're not careful and constantly pulling this out, you see a repeat of what happened in the last video where it got tucked in and stitched. Puckered in and got stitched back to itself. This tends to happen a lot because it wants to push in. It's a lot bunched under the machine. That's the other handicap of sewing with everything pushed under the machine. Now we're coming to the near to the end. And we're there. Okay, now that's the down seam. Now we have to repeat the portion to the neck like we did to the other side. Okay. Again, once again, making sure that the seam, first of all, make sure there's nothing coming up under there except what we are intending to sew, and to make sure that the new seam line is inside the garment from the seam line we did to attach the collar to the back of the garment. Okay, now we're done. Okay, that takes care of the sides. Next is the back interfacing, this. Now, not really critical to start where to start this. Just make sure you have an overlap on both sides like this. We're just going to take this up like that, and we're going to start like so. Again, inside the seam that we created for the when we stitched the collar, we do something like this. Again, making sure that nothing is bunching up under, about ready to go under that foot. Now, once you hit the other interfacing, you just stitch everything together like that. Now, we're done with that side. Turn it around to the other side, like this. Make sure there's nothing under there, which is more of a challenge now that we're running with everything bunched, everything under the machine itself. And that's it. Now, that's the easy part. What we have to do now is turn everything inside out. So we pull the sleeve, we pull the collar out. We have to pull both the interfacing as well as the outer part of the garment away from the collar. So we're going to pull everything this way except for the collar. Make sure that it's both sides are pulled. We're going to start in the center about a little under 1/2 inch. That's just the top stitch for the back. Now, you can only go a little bit at a time. You have to make sure both the the center of the interfacing and the side interfaces are properly pulled out. Okay, like this. You can just barely, can you see that? You see that? Pulled out. Pull the top of the garment itself out opposite the collar. Make sure nothing else is going to crawl under there. Go a couple of inches, then repeat the process, especially as you get close to where you start to enter the side interfacing and you head to the edge of the top interfacing. Okay? Take it real slow and a little bit at a time. Now we're coming to a major seam here. We're also coming to where the two interfacings are starting to intersect, constantly checking to make sure nothing else gets pulled under. And because we're going through several layers, we're going to take it really, really slowly. Now, we're already about ready to start hitting the side interfacing. And once we do that, now we come to the center. Now, what we have to do here, you have to pull this out. Okay, remember, we're turning this inside out. So this is the collar meeting the button panel, okay? Again, once again, make certain that all your layers are pulled out. The collar is pulled out as much as possible. You hold that, and then you stitch down here. This is the top stitch, okay? Here we have to not only make sure this is out, but the actual front of the center front of the garment is out, like so. Now we're ready to turn. Carefully push the pedal back only the small amount. Let the needle push up. We want to pull this open like that. It's not going to be perfect. Let's do the best we can. This gets top stitched. You make sure nothing else is under there. Make sure that the interfacing is pulled flat under there. Like, if I can show you, like that. Don't let it get bunched. Then we top stitch down the front like that. Do it one little bit at a time and do it slowly. Right on down to the front like that. Now we got the front on one side done. It looked like the interfacing went okay. Now we repeat the whole process with the other side of the front. Now we're going to be pulling to my right or to your left. Turned everything around under the machine. Remember, we pull the interfacing and the outside away from the collar. We're going to start. I just felt something bunching up here. Okay. All right. We're going to start where we left. Start at the center where we started earlier. Now, make sure we get everything, anything untangled. Don't make sure nothing pulling under. Either sewing a back or top stitching a curve. You get real tricky. It's a lot of things that can go wrong, mainly being forced to go under the foot of the machine. Now we got to make sure that the side interfacing is also properly pulled out as well. Matter of fact, we're about ready to hit the side interfacing right now, which is about here. Then we're now sewing into both the center interfacing and the side interfacing here. Go a little bit more. Got both of them right now. Okay, let's stop here. Let's get this pushed out right there. Right there. That's now we're going to press down and make sure that everything we have is properly pulled out. We're done with the center interfacing. The side interfacing now is a big concern. So that's pulled out. We're going to go ahead, finish the run on the collar, double check that that's pushed out as much as it can be. So we're now going to head toward the center front. Make the turn here. Let's bring the foot up, and now we're about ready to do the final top stitch for the down seam in the front. Be something like that. We press it down, make that smooth, make sure there's nothing else, make sure that the interfacing pulled tight underneath it. Then we start the down stitch on the front like that. Once again, okay. Okay, that finishes the down stitch. Now, what we've done, we just completed the sewing for the front, the neck, and the collar. So let's go back to the other table. All right, let's see how we're going to do this. I always have to try to remember to do this at the point of the view, whoops, as the camera would see it. Now, let's see. Now, here is, okay, whoop, that's not right. It's going to be this way. Turn it around like so. The front's in the front like that. Turn the collar around like this. Here. Okay, it's gonna look buttoned together. And get this. Show everything all. All right, that's going to be something like this. That's what it's going to look like. Like that. Okay, you can see that. Okay. Front, center, the seams, the pockets, the shoulders. I'm going to go ahead and try to put this on. Let's get the laptop camera going. Well, that is laptop. Transition. Okay, here I am. I know that's a poor camera, but I just want to show you now. This is now the front of the shirt. Let's get the, because remember, there's no back. Okay, It's just a yoke back. The button panel is going to go something like this. Alright, it's a collar that closes a horrible camera. But that's okay. It may not be even. You can't see that image very well, but that feel looks pretty good. The fit feels fine, remembering I have a shirt on under it, so there's plenty of room. Shoulders are fine. You can see the yoke in the back, okay? So now, next thing we're going to do is the buttons, the snaps. Unfortunately, it is 7:50. We started at 6:30. We are flirting dangerously close to the limits of the Access Bellingham video length. So let's stop here. The snaps are very boring. I may end up doing those off camera. Once the snaps are done, then we're going to put the back on and then the sleeves. So, be as it may, as I always say, I love you all.